I was actually listening to a video last night for like an hour of you, like, it was like the 3 dating advice tips or something of you speaking in a seminar, answering questions, right? And I remember just hearing your answers. All these women would say, well, what if I'm, with a guy and the flame's out? Or what if I'm excited and he was excited and then he starts not responding? And you were answering questions and I was like, they're all so logical and sound. It's not like this sleazy, weird things. It's like, well, think about it. If you were in this position, how would you respond? And this and this and this. And it was like, man, you're giving great advice. And now I know why so many people are attracted to the information that you're putting out there.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think that too much advice either strays into the either the aphoristic side of things. It's very cliche. I mean, this is what I think one of the big problems I have with the self-help industry in general is it's become so platitudinous. It's just to the extent that it becomes mind-numbing, and to some extent, the crowd that it begins to attract, I don't like or have anything in common with. Right. When someone comes up to me at the end of a seminar and says, I love your stuff. It's I'm a big law of attraction fan. I know immediately we have nothing in common. Right. I think, wow, I don't even know how you like my stuff. Right. Because I can't stand these concepts and this pseudoscience that is often put out there. For me, I'm all about the logical. I'm all about the practical, and I like things that can be tested. And I think that's why people like Tim Ferriss perhaps have done so well, because they in a market that is full of just vague, silly advice. Yes. I hear people in their say to women in their love lives, just open your heart. And you think, what do you mean by that? Like, what does she do today that's different based on that piece of advice? Just like, be yourself. Be yourself is extraordinarily lazy advice. Right. It's the advice people give when they don't know an actual solution. Because what do you just be yourself? What does that even mean? And by the way, be yourself is often just a euphemism for don't grow. Right. How many people are the same person today they were 5 years ago? No one. Yeah. And who's going to be the same today, tomorrow as they are today? People change and they evolve. So be yourself is a very strange and lazy piece of advice to give someone, but that's what we get all the time. So advice either goes into the kind of vague, or it ends up going into sometimes the sleazier or more sarcastic elements. I sometimes think at the other end of the spectrum, sometimes you have the comedian, the guy who is just, everything's a joke, everything's sarcastic, this very cynical, you can't change anything, blah, 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 learn to deal with it. And that gets too much the other way. Then someone essentially just becomes a cynic. And for me, what I try and base my advice on is this nice balance of realism and I wouldn't even say optimism, just the being empowered to actually do something about real life, however that stands.
So what I'm curious about is how, why is it you have the credibility to give so many women advice? You're only 27, right? And why should they listen to you when, you're a man? Yeah. Should they even trust you? You're not married, right?
No.
And you're currently single, I believe, right?
Single.
So why should they believe what you're saying has validity?
Firstly, that you're right in the sense that being a man gives me no extra credibility whatsoever. I always cringe when a journalist says to me, well, this is so great because you're a guy, so you can give them insight into guys. I think, what a stupid argument that is. It's like saying you're a woman, so you know all women. Right. Well, how many women are exactly the same? Yeah. How many women do you get in a room and they agree on everything? The same is true of men. I'm not here to speak on behalf of all men. Sure. I might be here to relay a message that I constantly get from men, or something that I observe with an enormous number of men. I mean, I say to women, I only started working with women, because they asked me to. I didn't. When I was coaching guys, I coached nearly 10,000 guys, and women were saying, when are you going to do the same thing for us? And I said, I don't know, because I don't really know you. I know men. because not because I'm a guy, but because I've just coached 10,000 of them over the last 3 years. I said, so I have something to say about men. I said, but I don't know you. And they said, don't worry, we don't want to know more about us. We want to know about men.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that I can do. And I sat down and I started talking about some things that felt obvious to me based on what I'd learnt from men, but weren't obvious to them. You know, a very simple thing would be that there were so many women out there that were saying, well, I want a guy who has the balls to make a move on me, right? And if he's interested, he's already coming over to me. And there were massive dating books out there for women that would say this, like, if he's not coming over to you, don't bother going up to him, because if he wanted to be there, he would be. This defied everything that I'd ever seen, not just from every man I'd ever coached, but from growing up around men and even for myself. This is an area where my personal experience does relate to that lesson. I was terrified.
I was terrified.
The idea of walking up to a woman and saying I like you or I think you're cute.
Yeah.
I got brought up by my mum to be a gentleman, right? I was brought up to, you know, buy flowers, buy the meal, don't ever let her pay, don't ever let her carry her bag, open her door. So at school, as a teenager, I got mauled by women for being that way. You know, I got walked all over.
Yeah.
They liked me. They thought I was a nice guy, but I was the one holding their bag while they got with that guy.
Right.
So it didn't translate. And I knew as a guy, as a teenager, something wasn't clicking. And something about what I'd been taught about attraction by my mum, who taught me to treat every woman like a princess. Yeah. Something about that advice wasn't translating and wasn't working. Now, when I started hearing from these books written for women, if he likes you, he's already talking to you. I looked at that and I thought, God, you know what? I'm not a loser. I'm not someone who's got everything going wrong in their life and is like, you know, oh, that's why he hasn't got the confidence. No, I was like a guy who had some great things going for him, and yet still I would look over there and go, no way.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
scary,
anything.
Man.
Terrifying. So, you know, I started to say to women, listen, firstly, guys, even the guys you want are nervous about coming over to you. So you might have to do a little more to make this a possibility.
To make them feel good about themselves, comfortable to come over.
Correct. And women will say, well, no, that's not true, Matt, because, you know, there are these guys who always hit on me when I go out. Yeah, but it's the same 5% every time.
Yes.
All right? There's 5 to 10% of guys who will hit on everybody who walks in the room.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not representative
and they're not getting the girls.
Right. Very often they're not.
They're not getting the girls.
There's a percentage of those who are like players who are good at it, who know how to do it.
Just spit the game.
Actually, most guys aren't in that mode. Most guys aren't good at doing that, and actually don't wish to do that because they don't want to be sleazy and they don't want to seem like that guy. So I started saying, women, you might have to do a little bit more, and don't assume, because in a seminar, any woman who comes to my seminar will see this. I'll say, put your hand up if at some point or another you've said or thought, well, if he doesn't have the balls to come and approach me, I don't think he's my type of guy anyway. And like 90% of the hands go up. So I say, here's the thing. As a guy, when you live in a city, you probably see 30 women a day that you're attracted to.
Yes.
Right?
You can't go up to every one of them.
You can't go up to every one of them, nor would you wish to, nor is it convenient to. And sometimes you just see a woman standing with her friend and you're like, oh, do I really want to go and approach her in front of her friend and have the possibility that she's got a boyfriend and I'm going to have to walk away with
and when you get rejected, you don't want to go do it again.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So I would say to them, if out of those 30 women that a guy sees in a day, he's going to approach the one that makes it slightly easier for him to approach her than the other 29.
The one that says, it's okay for you to talk to me.
Correct. However she chooses to do that.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you making some big grand move. No. It just means, I call it, I call it dropping the handkerchief. When you, women who say I'm old fashioned, I don't make the first move. I always say, then you're not old fashioned. Because 100 years ago, a woman would walk past a guy, drop her handkerchief and keep walking. The guy would see it. He'd say, this is an extraordinary opportunity to be a man.
Yes.
He'd pick up the handkerchief,
rescue the girl,
walk it over to her and say, madam, you dropped this. And she'd say, did I? And they now have a conversation. Now, he thought it was his idea.
Yes, and she was
but
clumsy.
She chose him.
Wow.
So I say to women, listen, this isn't about reversing roles here and you suddenly doing the guy's job. It's about you doing what women have always done and dropping the handkerchief. You just need to know how to do it in 2015.
Wow.
So that's...
So what are some ways to do it? What are two or three ways that a woman could do this to create an opportunity for a conversation to happen?
Right. So one of them is really, really simple. There was actually a book written by a guy called, I think, Richard Wiseman. It was called 59 Seconds. But one of the studies in the book that wasn't done by him, it was done by, I think, Jecker and Landy, was about the psychology of favors. And what they found years ago when they did this study, they were looking for the obvious, right? If I do you a favor, you'll like me more.
Yes.
What they actually found was if I do you a favor, I'll like you more. Because we like people that we're able to help in some small way. The only caveat was that the favor couldn't be something that was difficult to perform. If you ask me something that's difficult, I could get annoyed, right? And frustrated. If you ask me something that's easy for me to do and I get to help you in some way, I actually end up liking you more. So the psychology when done in the direction of man to woman is much more powerful because men have these two instincts, provide and protect. So now when a woman comes up and asks for a favor, he immediately gets to cater to those two male instincts that make him feel important. So the advice goes like this. If you walk up to a guy and you say, use this one first line and it will work time and time again. You say, I could really use your help with something. That one line is going to have 9 out of 10 guys immediately receptive to whatever you say
Because they
next.
want to provide and protect.
Yeah, anything. Tell me how I can feel important right now. So I could really use your help with something. Now,
it could be answering a question. It could be
anything, right? Directions. But let's say you're in a bar and you say, could you hold my jacket for 2 seconds while I give these drinks to my friends? I'm running out of hands here.
Smart.
You then take your drinks, you give them to your friends, you come back, you take your jacket and you say, thank you so much, you're a gentleman. How's your evening going anyway? Now, the beauty of this is, rather than having to go up to him randomly and saying, how's your evening going? Which makes it feel like you've really chosen him. In this example, he's doing you the favor. You're just politely asking how his evening is going after he's already done the favor for you. So that's an easy way for women to drop the handkerchief in any environment and they never have to risk rejection with that because there's nothing for him to reject. It's just a simple favor.
Wow. Okay. So that's number one.
So that's
maybe one more way.
That's number one. Let's think of a good one here. This kind of goes alongside it. I mean, you could ask a guy's opinion, for example. You could say, no, in fact, here's a good one. When you're with your friends and you see a group of guys, simply walk up to them and say, we're trying to guess what people's jobs are by what they're wearing.
Oh, that's cool.
And then start guessing. Everyone loves this game because you have fun guess. You could, and again, you can start in a funny way and say you're a spy. But whatever it is, play with it a little.
Sure.
But then the nice thing is they immediately know how to carry on that conversation because they're going to do it back.
Now, for guys who are experiencing this and they see a woman who creates an opportunity to talk to them, and now it's their responsibility to kind of continue the conversation, right? And to show that, okay, now I am interested.
So this is a really important part. This is really important because there is a mistake people make here. And I realized this early on because I was giving women this way to go and be proactive with guys in a way that they hadn't been before. But they were making the mistake of staying in there too long.
Oh.
Right?
So don't stick around.
No. Think of it this way. In order to give someone the opportunity to hit on you in the first place, you need to close the gap. So when a woman goes in and says, I mean, there's another one I'll give you. If you're, this one's, always pay attention to what's going on around you. And if nothing else, say the obvious. So you could be in a bar, lining up for a drink and you say to the guy next to you, oh my God, it's so busy in here. Right? That's it. By the way, you're not saying it's so busy in here. You're saying it's okay for you to talk to me.
Right.
That's really what you're saying. So in that moment, again, if you wanted to make it more flirtatious, you'd say, oh my God, it's so busy in here. It's you with your big shoulders. Move.
Right.
And then you'd push him. And then you immediately are going to have some great tension and he's going to feel manly. But the key thing is, don't then stay in there. I was in LA recently and I was with 2 buddies and 3 women came over and started talking to us. Now, I can't fault that because that's what I help people to do that. I think it's important. I think they did the right thing. But what they could have changed is when they came over to speak to us, they stood facing us with their feet pointed towards us in a circle, and then there was no sign of them leaving ever.
They were just committed to being there.
You know when someone's body language says, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it immediately makes you nervous because you sort of think, oh, you're like, how am I going to get out of this situation?
If you're not interested in them,
right.
You don't want to be in it.
And a woman knows this feeling much better than a man because when a woman is approached by a guy, she can't even concentrate on whether she's attracted to him if he's too much in her space to begin with.
Yeah.
He needs to give her space to observe him and decide she's attracted to him before he keeps just going and going and going. So these women would have been better off to maybe a minute in, just turn and talk to each other again. They don't have to go to the other side of the room and make things difficult, but just turn and talk to each other. Or, God forbid, there's another person there that they turn to and ask something of.
Right.
What they've done is close the gap, but then recreated space. So the second step of recreating space is very, very important because when they recreate space, it gives us a chance to observe them, a chance to miss them, and a chance to think, oh, how do we get them back over here? So now when we go over there and say, by the way, I was thinking about what you said just now, and keep talking, for them it's like, okay, that's like, now they've made a move. Now they've chosen to be in the situation
to be back with it,
instead of us just choosing to be there and never knowing if they were really attracted.
And that's what needs to happen for women is they need to feel chosen as well.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. So it's kind of like you're choosing him to begin with so that you're not just randomly choosing from the pool of guys that are brave enough or obnoxious enough to run up to you. But at the same time, you're giving it space so that he can choose you and you can be confident in that process.
And then from there, there's a whole nother workshop you do on teaching how to get the guy or how to get the girl after that.
You can imagine,
it never
right?
ends.
And if you want to learn more about mastering relationships, then make sure to check out this video right here.
Exactly how you are, I love you. Like no changes, nothing. I love you exactly how you are. Sometimes we feel like we're owed that. And it kind of becomes an excuse again
to be lazy,
to grow.